G'day and welcome to a Campfire Project Live. Tonight I've got with me Alan Stevens, Angela Heise and Rose Davidson. Thank you very much for joining me.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Alan Stevens is an international profile and communications specialist. Angela Heise, a professional leadership and emotional productivity coach. And Rose Davidson runs Does Biz and is co-founder of Healing Through Love. And tonight we're opening up for questions to anybody that pops up. So if it's all right with everybody, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves a bit further, and then we'll lead into some questions if that's okay. Alan, we should start with you, please.
Okay, I'm Alan Stevens. I'm an international profiling and communication specialist, and I'm also the creator of the Campfire Project and the hashtag We Together.
Beautiful, thank you. Angela?
I have been a coach and trainer for the last 25 years, and I love working with people from every walks of life. My favorite playground is the intersection of social, emotional, and cultural intelligence. So that's a mouthful, but it's basically how we deal with each other, how we communicate, how we feel, and how we manage difference. And in every job, from every walk of life.
Beautiful, thank you. And Rose?
Well, let me see. I started my own business in 2015, and since then I have become president of Healing Through Love, which is a domestic and family violence awareness initiative. It's my great passion to bring more awareness to the community around those issues. And Healing Through Love run free pamper days for domestic and family violence survivors. Started in Adelaide in 2018, and since I've moved to Hobart, I am running one down here. So yeah, both of them, and yeah, it's going to be really exciting. And thank you for allowing me to be here.
No, thank you all for joining me. And feel free for people watching to pop up into the comments and ask any questions you like. We are open to any questions. So at the moment, I'm just going to start by asking everybody how they're feeling at the moment. With everything that's going on, where are we at? We'll start with you, please, Angela.
With me?
Yes, please.
I'm feeling inspired because I think we've got a wonderful opportunity here to make all sorts of amazing changes. So.
Brilliant. Rose?
Yeah, I agree. I think not only in business can we make changes, but also in our personal lives. I think being locked up for 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you need to find other ways to amuse yourself. And I think I'm hoping that it will get back to basics where people are starting to read books and play with their children more and, play games with them rather than just being stuck on the internet.
Beautiful. Alan?
In my case, it's probably what I'm feeling at the moment is tired, mainly because not only am I doing what I always do, but now I've got a lot more people getting in touch with me each day, looking at solutions, for the issues that they're going through. So it's there's been a little bit of trepidation about where it's going, but it's also, like Angela was saying, there's also a bit of excitement as well as what the possibilities could be. Because I looked at it and thought, right, if we just get caught in the fear and we get locked into that, we're just going to get bogged down and we're not going to go anywhere. In fact, while you're in fear, your immune system suffers and you've got more chance of being sick. So it's changing the approach that we have and starting to look forward and going, right, well, if we're stuck at home, so to speak, I don't look at it as being stuck at home. I look at it as being an opportunity to start looking at all those things that I couldn't do before because I didn't have the time. Now I've got the time. So now I can start looking at my business and looking at, well, what do I really want to do? How do I want to restructure things? And I can then also connecting with people. I'm just finding out how much I do enjoy talking to other people and seeing them and chatting with them and as they're working through the issues that they've got. So I'm quite it's probably a terrible thing to say, but to a certain degree, I'm enjoying it.
Fantastic. Sorry.
But you might have to kick me out again. I'm frozen.
Okay, Angela. Okay, so this is a new technology that we're trying, and we're learning how to use it. And I'm going to kick Angela out literally and bring her back in. So there's actually a kick out button on this, and it's quite amusing. So, because
you can see there's a bit of a smile on his face when he does that as well.
if you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly. So we'll look forward to having Angela back in a minute. I'm very positive about what's going on at the moment. I know there's some dark times coming for people, and welcome back, Angela. Thank you. And I think now is a great time for possibility. I think it's a great time to sit down and reevaluate a lot of things in life. And I'm already seeing a lot of different possibilities and opportunities already popping up. A good friend that's got a pizza shop popped up, and he started selling veggies and fresh meat instead of just selling pizzas. You know, I held off his ninth birthday party online. My computer skills was a bit ordinary, but there's plenty of opportunities. So I'd like to throw it out there to see what anybody's actually in the possibilities you've seen. Angela, you seen any possibilities lately?
Is Rose typing? Sorry.
I'm just sending Scott a message.
Oh, okay.
Ignore. We're live.
Okay. Yeah, that's you. Okay, there we go. Right.
So your question was, do I see any possibilities?
Yes.
Yes, I think we are in a place now where we can actually connect even. I know it sounds really strange because we are in social distancing and self-isolation and all of that, but I think we have an opportunity to connect even better than we did before, because now it's a conscious choice. We now deliberately connect with people. Like we don't just say hi and we just let it pass, but we just really engage with each other from that place of being present, because we don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we're making the best of what's going on right now.
Do you feel that, I feel that all of a sudden when I'm talking to people, I'm really enjoying it more. There's more of a deliberate connection with them. And that's what I've been finding. I've really been enjoying that side of it. The conversations I've had, they've been more meaningful. They just haven't been the passing questions about business and things like that. But we're really getting to know each other.
Yes. And what I really enjoy is, look, I live by myself and I work mostly online. So I think I'm pretty much prepped for this whole situation. But what I find really important right now is for me to reach out to people who are not used to this situation, because it can get lonely and can get frustrating. So I really enjoy reaching out, and people reach out to me. I have had phone calls and messages from friends I haven't talked to for a long time just to see if I'm okay. And I think that's wonderful. As I said, I feel we're more connecting than before.
Yeah, it's funny though. I'm a bit the same. I'm reaching out to people I haven't spoken to in years, and people are actually having those deeper conversations. I know myself with my neighbours, checking on them a little bit more regularly. Got quite a few elderly neighbours, and one of them, her husband passed away last year. She said people have been walking past the street, waving, walking up to a window and checking in on her. So there's some massive positives going on out there at the minute. Rose, anything you've seen?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of massive negatives going along too. I don't mean to be the doom and gloom, but there's people that are still gathering in groups and still hoarding at the supermarkets. And my husband did the shopping this morning, and we shop at Coles here in one of the local suburbs, and there's actually, he wanted to buy 3 of something and they said, no, you can only have 2. So, they're doing it well in that way. But, the silly people that are still gathering it in parks and, having backyard parties, even though they're, not banned, I guess, but, there's legislation in place to say that, that they're not allowed to happen anymore. And they're still doing it. And why? They're putting other people at risk. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. They're not thinking about the wider community. They're just thinking about their own selfish needs. And that really gets up my nose.
Yeah, there seems to be 2 camps. There's those people that are really getting into the community mindedness of things and really seeing how they can help people. And the others that are just selfish. The hoarders will always be hoarders. And they're the ones that really cause the problem we've got. We wouldn't have a problem at the supermarket if the hoarders hadn't started in the first place. We've got enough food in Australia that we grow to feed 75 million people, and our population's not even 30 million. So for there not to be food in the supermarkets or fresh food to be in scarcity, there's something majorly going wrong with the way that we do.
But they're not thinking like I've heard tell that busloads of people are going from the city into the regional areas, busloads going to regional areas to raid the supermarkets in the regional areas. So what is going to be left for the people in the regional areas? Nothing. My daughter was here just recently from Melbourne, and her friend lives out in the bush, and she couldn't even go to her supermarket to buy baby formula because it had been raided by the people in the cities. Now, really, come on, people, it's not good enough. It's terrible. It just makes me so angry. I really get angry. I don't see the sense in it. I really don't.
No, there is no sense.
Yeah, I think the We Together initiative, which is the Campfire, we need to communicate better about things. And we're looking at our politicians at the minute, and I don't see any clear messages coming out of them at the minute. There's a lot of just talking before about the hairdressers. Do you go to the hairdresser? Do you not go to the hairdresser? There's a half an hour appointment. The guy from Just Cuts has just sat there and looked at and did an advertisement to the government. I'm here with people cutting their hair, and you're asking us to stay away from each other. How is this possible? So the message is really unclear. And I think we just need clarity. Personally, I'd like to just see it all locked down, shut it down, get it done 3 or 4 weeks, move on. But that's not my choice.
Well, one of my friends works closely with the defence, and they're saying June, July, the end of June or end of July before anything will even be near ready for us to get out of quarantine. So,
yep,
that's a long time.
Yeah, sorry, Angela, go ahead.
But the fact is as Alan was saying, there is enough food for everybody. The farmers are not going to stop harvesting. The supermarkets will stay empty, still open. Because, I know in Spain, for example, they already have procedures in place. My friend lives in a place where they allow 10 people at a time into the supermarket. They have to sanitize their hands before they go in. They have to wear masks. They do their shopping. They come out. The next 10 people go in. So there's enough food. We can put procedures in place to make sure that everybody is safe. There is no need to panic. We are not going to shut down. It's not that where there's radioactivity out there. So, and so I think, as you were saying, Rose, we need to stay level-headed. And my sense is that if we keep doing that, the people who are the hoarders, the people who are
the selfish people, yes,
freakouts, the people who are really in survival mode at the moment because they are just so afraid. If we keep level-headed, we can continue being in this place in a very calm way. If you look at the figures at the moment, Australia is doing really well. And I know that the rest of the world, that is not necessarily so. But we have an opportunity to really step up because emotions are contagious.
That's it.
And if we stay calm and if we walk the talk, and we reach that critical mass, and there's a formula that says so many % of the population times square divided by how many, but it doesn't matter. If we're just doing our bit to manage ourselves, we'll get through this and we'll come out of it better than before.
See, I think when we start separating people, we look at what's good and bad, we're still not looking at the problem because it's the emotion underneath. It's the fear, and then going deeper into that and going, why is the fear there?
Yeah.
Because if you remove the fear, we wouldn't have people hoarding. So it's not so much good or bad people, it's how deep and the fear is that causes people, because we're all about survival. We say, we'd like to be like some of the animals. Well, the animals will eat their young. If they look like they're going to become extinct, they'll look after themselves before they look after their young so that they can survive. It's part of our wiring. We're wired to survive. And that being the case, while we feel that our survival is at threat, we're going to do everything to try and protect that. So some people out there are feeling the fear so great that they're worried about their life. Because I put a post up a little while ago and explained the difference between the coronavirus, the symptoms of that, a cold and flu. And people came back and said, but what about the mortality rate? Well, this was a symptom thing, not a mortality list. And then I said, well, think about the number of people. 640,000 people die from influenza every year, and 1.5 million people commit suicide. And I had one woman come back to me and say to me, but they're not escalating. The coronavirus is. And I went, 1.5 million people, you're talking about escalation not being there, but at 1.5 million people committing suicide, that's something we should be concerned about. But what it told me was it's not the number of people, it's the fact of it escalating that she might get the infection, get the coronavirus. And so it was about self-preservation. So when people are worried about self-preservation, that's when altruism goes out the window and it comes back to the individual. And that's what we've got to look at, is how do we address that so that those people can stop feeling fearful, so that they can stop then hoarding and stop doing the wrong thing, because underneath they're probably just, they're good people, but it's a situation they're in that's bringing the bad side out.
I'm not saying that they're not good people. I'm just saying that they're selfish. But
yeah.
Let me ask you this question. What do you think has made them so fearful? Is it the propaganda that the media's been spouting? Is it the indecisiveness early on of the federal government, our state governments not being aligned with each other? Is it the federal government in the beginning treating it as a it's not happening, it's not anything to be concerned about? Is that why they're fearful, because of all the indecisiveness and all the misinformation and all the misguided doing people that are out there?
All of that's going to be part. There's going to be a lot of things, I think, that are going to be to bring it, that are part of it and bring the whole thing. I've listened to some of the Prime Minister's presentations, his press releases, and I've heard the media ask him questions over and over again when he's already given the answer that was blatantly obvious, and it was obvious that they were looking for certain answers. So when we've got media who want to sell newspapers, because sensationalism and fear always sells, it flocks people to that. Whereas if you talk about good stories, nobody really worries about it that much. It's just, that's okay, and they move on. So we've got some of the media with that. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them with that approach. We've also got politicians they're still running in their old cycle, which if your job is to get into government, and once you're in there is to stay in government. So the end result is we've got these frightening fractions between the different parties, and we watch them in Parliament, and they carry on like school kids, the way they scream and carry on at each other. And I go, well, why don't you get on with talking about the job? You're supposed to be governing Australia and taking it to a leading place. But while you're squabbling like the school children, both boys and girls, both of them, the end result is they don't move forward. So they're the people who are sitting back and making slow decisions, and we wear the brunt of that. So it's really everybody needs to look at, and I don't mean to pick anybody out in particular, politicians or media, but I think it comes back to all of us. Don't look at anybody else. Look at ourselves first. What I've been thinking about, well, what have I been saying to people? What have I been thinking? And until I look at that properly, then I can't point the finger at anybody else, because when I point one finger, there's three fingers pointing back. And I've got to address those three fingers before I worry about the pointing finger. So I need to know that, where my head's at, how I feel about things, why I feel the way I do, address that, and then I can be a better version of me when I'm talking to other people, and hopefully have a better connection with them.
But everything comes back to what you do yourself. Everything. We can complain about governments, we can complain about bits and pieces, but it's up to us individually to make a stance and actually do the things we need to do in society. So for me, everything's about diet. And diet isn't just what you put in your mouth. Diet's what you read, what you listen to, who you hang around. All those things encompass your diet. Everything you consume is what goes in, it's what comes out. So personally, myself, I come from love. I don't come from fear, but then I don't watch TV. I don't listen to the radio. I surround myself in places like this, the Campfire Project, so I get the best possible outcomes in my life, because I get positivity and I get lessons, which for me was what the Campfire is about. The next little bit, I'm just going to explain to everybody, I am learning this technology, and I'm trying to work out. So we're going to get a few of these things up and running. Like, if you feel free to ask a question, I'm learning how to pop these up. At the moment, we've got Facebook user, because I don't know. Rose, you said, I've got to get the people on Facebook user.
There is a link.
Okay.
That I think you posted that in our message that you sent.
So
there's a link.
Right. Okay.
There's a link from StreamYard that allows people to give Facebook permission to connect with StreamYard, and then we can actually see their gorgeous faces. Or handsome faces.
Yes, I'm just holding back on something. Thank you. I'm just holding back on some of the comments because I don't know who they're from.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I mean. If they had clicked on the link, then we'd know.
So I'm gonna pop this one up because I think it's something we can address at the minute. My feelings are stressed because of separating from my family. Contact is hard. One of my grandchildren was going to bring the great grandchildren, but my daughter said no to protect us from the cold. The longer this goes on, the old people will have more fear issues. Does anyone want to jump onto that? Can you, Rose?
There's a lot of issues around the older people in our society. They don't know really what's going on, why they're being separated from their loved ones. I think it's quite difficult in the aged care facilities where you can have one family member in there and the rest of them have to stand outside and wave at you through the window. I mean, I understand the philosophy and the reasoning behind it, but, it must be difficult for them when, especially if they're close to their families and they don't understand why they can't have physical contact with them.
Yeah, it's funny. Oscar at the moment, he doesn't see his grandmother. She went into lockdown. She's diabetic and got a few bits and pieces going on that she can't afford to contract anything. He started writing her letters. What a great way to communicate. You got a grandson and a grandmother. Maybe that's an opportunity for people. Start writing letters. Go back to a bit of old school because it's nice to get something in the mail.
That's it. And not just an email, because most of those older people probably don't use technology anyway, but having something that's been handwritten, no matter how bad your writing is, the worse it is, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that they receive that. I know that the elderly people, it's more about they like the touch. They like to be able to, be close to people. So to be isolated is going to be hard enough. So doing all things like we can come up with, like writing letters and doing those sort of things, or even sending a drawing through or something like that. It's back to the days of young children with their parents. At least the older people have got that connection, and the more regularly you can do it, the less they're going to feel isolated. Because if they are on their own, they're in lockdown, they're not able to touch anybody, people can't come in and see them. It's got to be extremely hard for them.
But I wanted to say that I'm really impressed. I mean, like you said, that a lot of older people don't use technology, but the person who just posted that is clearly not only using Facebook, but also, there's all sorts of things. And maybe that's an opportunity for people to also embrace new technologies. Maybe this is a great time for people to upskill each other, and especially for, when with your son you said he's your greatest teacher at the moment. He's teaching you what?
Double bass at the moment. I've got to share something with you. I had my first exam tonight before we came on the panel, and I'm just going to be really rude, but I'm just going to share with you my results. Because at the moment with lockdown, we need our kids to be doing something. So my son's teaching me how to play the double bass, and he's come through with. I should know how to do this on the screen. I'm not going overly well. Willow Waltz, great, but go a bit faster. Score was 9 out of 10. So the jig, perfect, but I can hear you tense up, soften your grip with your bow. Score 9 out of 10. I'm having this beautiful relationship with my son at the minute, playing a double bass, something I'm not overly great at, no skill whatsoever, but it's an opportunity. And we can make these opportunities. And they're there for everybody if we just have a crack.
That's it. Now, we'll have to have a listen to you play later on, and we'll work out whether he's being over generous with his marks.
I hope Martha is not watching. I'll bring it down.
Yeah.
So,
But as Angela said, some of the older people will use technology, and in that case, Zoom, or Skype, where they can see them. And in fact, they can touch the screen together, to the camera and the screen, and that way have a feeling of touch as well. There are so many ways in which we can do things. The only limitation we've got really is our imagination. If we're caught in the fear and think we've got nothing we can really do, then we're locked out. But if we go, okay, if we can't do that, what else can we do? Yep. There's an old technique in NLP. You say to somebody, they say, I don't know what to do. Or I don't know. And you say, well, if you did know, what do you reckon the answer would be? Yeah. Stupid question, but God, it triggers the brain to start thinking. And people fumble, but all of a sudden they come up with ideas. Mm-hmm. So that might be something to say as well. If you don't know what to do, if you did know, what would you do? What could it be?
That's a good question, actually.
Mm. Yeah. The thing is we are so, the brain processes negative stuff far more efficiently than positive stuff.
Mm.
Yes. For every negative emotion and for every negative experience that we have, we need 3 positive ones to offset the effect. So, and we're focusing on what doesn't work because that's what keeps us safe. There's so much information going on around us, we can't focus on consciously. So the brain goes, I'm just going to focus on the stuff that doesn't work because everything goes according to pattern. This is why we love routines. I can completely ignore. But if there's something that doesn't quite work, that's what I want to focus on so I can make sure that I survive. So that's why it's so important that we focus on the good stuff, that we create more kindness, more compassion, that we connect with each other so that when something bad happens, which it will, there will be stuff that we don't like, that we can then reset and get centered much more quickly. And then we can get into creative thinking mode, because when we're in survival mode, the part of the brain that creates all of that creativity, that comes up with all of these amazing ideas, is not available. Because I'm in fight flight. I'm just wondering, who am I going to hit over the head and where am I going to run really quickly to so I stay safe? Where can I get the best toilet paper and the most does not help me come up with some really creative ideas of, what else is possible. And so the more we stay calm, the more we enjoy each other's company, be it on the screen or in person, the better.
Yeah. And that's from what Angela's just said, what Hugh was just saying then about there are so many great opportunities that can come out of this. They will come when you have that mindset that Angela's just been talking about.
And it's a fantastic thing, because I just did one-on-one with Mick Hawes. And if anyone's looking to see somebody who's made me one of the most positive people around, he talks about it often, about what's good about this. It's the one question he asks every time something happens. What's good about this? You can't think negative when you ask questions like that. What's good about this? Find good things. So it comes back to your diet again. And Hugh's actually a part of the Black Belt program, which I hope we'll get the calls on very soon. But it is. I keep saying it. Surround yourself in positive people. Books at the minute. Books are an opportunity. A recommendation on any books.
Well, it's been said that you are the person of the 5 people that you most associate with. So your proximity, so the 5 people in your proximity, it makes you who you are. So
that's why you get around the right people.
Yeah, and since proximity has taken on a whole new meaning these days, that could be us.
So proximity, we think about proximity, and that's the people who are right next to us. But if our connection is via Zoom or by phone or via some form of electronic media, then it's the people that we're talking to at the end of that service. They are the people in close proximity to us.
That's right.
So I just look at the people I don't want in my life. I don't bother talking to them anymore. And I find that when I don't think about them, they disappear. And when I just decide this is the way I'm going to be, and I only start talking to the people that really matter to me, that I want to be like, etc., then the other people just seem to disappear very quickly. And that's the whole thing. It's the same thing with the thoughts. It's very easy to say, oh, we need to do this. Ask yourself, for instance, what's good in this? Well, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to remember that. So put little stick-it notes around the place on your mirrors and things like that. So you keep seeing these questions asking you, And after a while, it'll start to be something that's consciously in your mind all the time. When something happens, you go, oh, what's good about this? We've got to train ourselves to do that by saying, hey, let's just ask ourselves what's good about this. As soon as something happens, you're not thinking about that question. And so to be able to then step back from that and have little Post-its around wherever you walk around the place, you see these little sticker notes with the questions, the things that you want to remember. Not as statements, but as questions, because we have a tendency to want to answer questions, whereas statements we just listen to and half the time don't take any notice of. So instead of putting affirmations up as statements, put them up as questions.
Yeah, so people that I associate with, they want to know why I'm not overly concerned about the virus. If I get it, I get it, I guess. But, I always try to look at the positive within every situation, and it doesn't matter, whether it's happening to me, or usually if it's happening to me, I always try to look at something that's a positive, or try and find something that's amusing about it, so that I don't actually fall in the heap and cry. Because even if I do cry, then then I've had my cry, and then I think, well, at the end of the day, there's got to be some reason it's happened, or there's got to be some positive outcome to the bad thing that's happened in the first place. There's always a reason and a rhyme for everything, I believe. It doesn't just happen. There's something. Yes, it doesn't just happen. There's a reason behind it. I'm not quite sure what this reason is for this pandemic at the moment, but someone's dreamed it up and thinks it's all good for the human race, and I think it's maybe a wake-up call for all of us to be kinder to each other and become closer and stop all this fighting and all the other ugly things that are happening in the world.
When you just said a moment ago that you weren't worried about the virus, I know some people are going to be looking at it and saying, oh, that's irresponsible. But it's a bigger picture. If you can step back from it, you see the bigger picture. You step back further, you'll see a bigger picture again. Step back further, you'll see a bigger picture. The way I look at it is, if I worry about the virus, then I'm actually affecting my immune system. I'm affecting my happiness. I feel miserable. This time being, in isolation really becomes a burden, which then makes me unhappy and miserable and crankier and everything else. It's not doing anything for my health. As I say, when you're angry at somebody else, you're really taking poison, expecting them to die. So I'm not going to take poison because I'm angry at the virus or the situation we've got, because that's going to kill me. That'll kill me faster than if I went out and got the virus. I'm in the susceptible range with somebody if they got the virus. So I'm doing everything that's sensible, but I'm not worrying about it, because if I worry about it, that's going to affect my health.
That's right.
More. It'll create other.
Fear affects our immune system. It does.
Yeah.
Okay, panelists, I've got a question coming in. How do you think our culture may change when this situation has passed? Anyone want to tackle that? I personally think it's going to bring us together a lot more. I think once this situation has passed, we're going to know what we actually need in life and what's actually important. It's actually going to give us the opportunity to really evaluate our lives and actually make calculated decisions based upon what we didn't have. So that's how I think our culture is going to change. I also think we're going to be less driven by financial efforts and more driven by humanity efforts. So that's where I think we're heading.
Yeah, we're in this period of being. Sorry, Angela, go ahead.
I think we're going to be more inclusive, because this virus does not care about race or ethnicity, about religion, about gender, about age, and it affects everybody. And what we're realizing is everybody, we're connected to everybody, and who we are, what we are, doesn't really matter. It's that we are, and that we are connected, that really counts.
Yeah, I think it's taken notice of the "we together" hashtag. It doesn't matter who it actually affects. But at the end of the day, I think that we're going to go through a period where there's going to be two camps. So we're going to be looking at the ones who are hoarding and pulling away and being selfish. We're going to be looking at the ones who are being altruistic and being there for each other. And there's going to be, I think, a little bit of, it gets into more of a me too, men too type approach, where we've got two camps or a tribal situation. I'm hoping that we get beyond that, though, and we start to realise that and focus back on what we learn in this time, which is about looking after each other, because those people who are looking after each other and putting out good news, talking about the things they're doing, helping other people out, that will become the norm. I don't think business is just focusing on money anymore, because at the end of it, the people who are just focusing on saying, hey, come to me, I'll look after you, and they're focusing on them first, pay me so I give you a service, as opposed to those that are out there going, let me help you, and oh, thank you for paying me. So the payment comes after the help, as opposed to the focus being on the payment. We'll find that the people who are doing that right thing, looking after everybody first, being part of a community, will build bonds and relationships that will last well beyond the end of the virus. And the people who are greedy about just looking after themselves. And you've got to be careful. There's a lot of people on the internet at the moment who have put their hands up and they're, it's all lovey-dovey and everything else. But really, because I'm a profile, I'm sorry, I watch a lot of them and I go, nah, they're being they're false. There's a mask on there, etc. And the good ones are easy to pick. And once people start to recognize that, I don't think they're going to need all of my courses to be able to do that. Just over a period of time, they're just going to recognize by the behavior. Because we know that if somebody says something and everything sounds fine, but we get that gut feeling something is wrong, we've picked up the non-verbal indicators. This is really going to show that as well in people's behavior. It's not what you say that's important, it's what you do. And so those that are consistent all the way through, they're the ones that people will trust. They're the ones that are going to, their businesses will skyrocket at the end. They're the ones that are going to make all the money. And the people who are greedy and looking after themselves, they're going to be suffering and being punished. They'll punish themselves after this event because they won't have the clients and they won't have the relationships. I think we're going to move more towards a society where relationships, that emotional intelligence is far more important than the technological intelligence that we have.
I've seen a lot of 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses offering their services for free in business groups that I belong to. Do you need something? Can I help you with, your website? Can I help you with something? And it might only be a small thing, but to a small business owner who, may be facing bankruptcy or whatever, that little small thing that's being offered to them could be a lifeline. They may not necessarily need the money. They would need the money, but they might need some help with some technology or some way of turning their thinking around, or even turning their business around about how they do things. That's being offered for free from these other big business owners, and with nothing asked in return, except that that you take up the offer and live happily ever after. And I think that's really great. Previous to this, I've not seen it. There was always a lead magnet. I'll give you this for free, and then you have to do sign up. But I've not seen any of that, and I've checked out quite a few of them to make sure that they're not lead magnets. And it's quite pleasing to see that big or larger businesses, larger money earners, offering their services for free to the smaller people in the fish pond.
Well, it's interesting to see that Simon Sinek's new book, The Infinite Game, like all the infinite construction and infinite thinking at the minute going on is brilliant. Whereas the finite, where I'm after a win, they're the ones that are going to struggle a bit, because it's things like the businesses that are helping other businesses at the minute that don't normally do that. That's the beautiful humanitarian things that are going on at the moment. They're absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to shoot over to another question, if that's all right. Hugh Matrix has chucked one up, so I'm going to pop that up and then we can get into that. Are we hopeful that lost communication period of everyone turning to their phones may end as people will look for human contact again? What are your thoughts?
I think that's probably going to be the case, because once people come out of isolation, it's almost like they're coming out of withdrawal. They're going to want to connect with people. And so you may find people actually reconnecting, because one of the biggest problems was fastest growing industry on the planet has been technology, and we've been more connected by devices. And you see people sitting next to each other, both on their same devices. You go into cafes and everybody's on a device. And that in that period of time, we became less connected with ourselves and each other. And so by this isolation, now it's going to get people to then have that passion, that desire to reconnect with people. So I think, yes, there's going to be a major change to the way that we use the technology. I'm really hoping so, because, comes back to, let's get back to building stronger relationships. You imagine people sitting down and having that conversation they haven't had with anybody, talked to anybody for a long time. They sit down, they have a cup of coffee and they're talking. They're not going to have that need to grab their phone. There's going to be this strong desire to actually talk to each other. And I think that's going to be great. We'll see people actually sitting down, facing each other and talking.
Like the old days before mobile phones. I mean, back in the 80s, before they were, a thing. How did people communicate before over a coffee? They actually had to talk to each other, and then mobile phones came in and it ruined that interaction. It really did. I mean, we're all grateful for this great technology, but, sometimes I long for the old days when you could go and have a coffee and, even with your best friend and there's, texting or whatever because, their bosses on the line with them or whatever. And I think, we used to do that back in the 80s or even before then. So before the 80s, when we didn't have all this great technology that we have now, I think that was a good time in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how many people get together after this and they don't bring their phones at all when they get together or they leave them in their bags and pockets. You don't see them on the tables. That'll be interesting.
My answer to this question is yes. We will be in need of more human contact. I'm going to shuffle along a little bit because our next question I want to throw into Angela because I think it's right up her alley. So how do we focus on the love-based emotions when the media is constantly promoting fear-based ones?
You want the really simple answer?
Yes.
Stop watching.
Sorry?
Turn it off.
I
have pretty much unsubscribed from everything that I used to get, and I just don't focus on that anymore because it's fear-mongering. And as Alan says, nothing sells more than fear, and it sells beautifully because it feeds that adrenaline rush, and we can literally become addicted to that. So surround yourself with people. Start practicing a gratitude ritual. I can highly recommend that. Gratitude is the emotion that strengthens the immune system the most. So start going around. And this is maybe that fits in with the telephone. Start really connecting with people and being grateful to have them in your life, even when they push your buttons. This is the appreciation because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And just really focus on being present with them right here, right now. Fear is something when we don't know. It's like anxiety. We don't know what's going to happen. It's the unknown. But we know what we know, and we know what we can control. Let go of what you can't control. Stop watching TV. Stop listening or reading the fake news, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, just give you an example of how powerful and how true that is. First of all, every thought we have creates a chemical reaction. If we have, bad thoughts, are going to be bad chemicals going through your body, and they attack your organs. The positive one will feed your organs. That's purely the simple side of it. Back when I was a massage therapist about 2 decades ago, I had terminally ill patients coming to me. And one of the things, especially those that there was one gentleman, elder in his church, ran a commercial company. He came to me and he said, I've got a gut fall. Well, he had stomach cancer. And we sat down, we talked about it, and I took him through a process. I'd take them through an NLP process and I'd massage them. So in that hour of the massage, they would anchor all their thoughts. So it was like having your therapy, not walking out the door and getting hit in the face by the real world, but being in a meditative state and really taking it in. The end result, first thing I said to him was, what do you do when you come home from work? He said, I watch the news. I said, well, stop watching the news. Stop reading the newspapers. What did you do when you first got married? Because I knew his wife loved him because she was the one who dragged him in to see me. And he said, well, I used to help cook the food. And I said, well, why don't you do that? He said, I'm a lousy cook. I said, would you like a glass of wine? He said, yes. I said, well, knock the bottle off a glass of wine. Have a glass of wine each, not a bottle, but a glass of wine each, and watch and talk to your wife while she's preparing dinner. Well, it wasn't long before he was starting to help her with preparing the dinner. And 3 months later, he came back from Visionary Health, who were the herbalists he was working with, and he said, my cancer's reversed. That's the power of the thoughts that we have and how they can, the wrong thoughts will eat you away. the fear will eat you away. So the more you can step out of that, it comes down to making that conscious decision as well. Do you want to keep getting what you've got, or do you want something different? As I said earlier on another meeting that I had, was Henry Ford had said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Mm. And it was Einstein who said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, that's the definition of it, and expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. So if we let the fear hold us in, then we're going to get more of that. It's going to magnify. So we have to make a conscious choice and say, no, I'm going to step out of that. And then you put reminders around. You even have friends that might ring you to ask you, well, are you still thinking about today? What are you thinking about today? And challenge each other. If you can't do it yourself, do it for someone else and get them to do it for you. Have that connection. Now we're into more relationship stuff happening, because now we're calling each other with a conscious desire to help each not ring somebody who just whinge about your problems.
That's
the things we can do.
Yeah, because we're isolated now. We're inside the house. Yeah, and we don't have that human contact. Ringing somebody just to hear another person's voice, that's a familiar voice, is quite comforting.
So for those at the minute that are feeling the fear, I'm going to make a bit of a suggestion. Try new things. Try finding a coach. Try finding someone who can elevate your game, and understand that it's not necessarily going to be the first door you walk through that's going to be the right answer. It took me a long time to sit down and try and find new people to work with. Even when I met Alan, I'm going to share this story because I sat down with Alan. I'm sitting opposite Alan. I'm trying to present to Alan, and I'm looking at him, and I just said, "I'm sorry, mate, I can't present to you." He goes, "What?" I said, I don't think you want to hear anything I've got to say. Proof in the pudding, I'm sitting here with him tonight. So try everything. Make sure you leave nothing unturned, because eventually the door will open. It's always that last key. Whenever you go to open a door and you can't see it, it's always that last key. So just keep trying new things. So.
Can I expand a little bit on that situation, because it'll drive another point home here as well, because Scott was standing in front of me. He'd already made an assumption because of the way I was dressed and, his belief around himself. And so I didn't let him off the hook. I sat there with the deadpan look on my face. I didn't respond to him at all. I watched him stand there. He had to wait because a whole group of other people, everyone was presenting to somebody else. There's about 80 of us or so in the room. And we had to wait. Scott's standing there, and I could see the sweat starting to run from his brow. His knees were starting to shake, and I just went even more. There was no way I was putting any expression on my face. Next thing you know, he then presented, and after he presented, he's waiting for my reaction, but we couldn't react until we were given the go-ahead to give our critique. And I sat there, and this must have gone on for it must have felt like about 10 minutes. It was only probably about 1 or 2. And as soon as I was allowed to critique, I went, wow, I just loved what he had. He talked about it was absolutely brilliant. But that fear that locked him and everything else, what he found after that was, a great friendship, because we started talking, we got to know each other. We've been, he's been on the Campfire. That's, I invited him on here straight away because I saw his potential. I saw his heart. He couldn't see it. And that's what happens when you're in fear. You can't see a solution. You can't see yourself. So even getting a good coach is going to ask you the same thing. Tell me more about this fear. What did it feel like? Have you looked at it? You worked out where it came from. What do you see it to be? Analyze it. Work out, if I've had this fear, what's the worst things? What's the best things that could happen? And as you start to get your logic in, you're putting your emotions aside for a moment, which allows you to start to slow down and find a solution. And you then realize, my fear is not as great as it was. I'm in a different mindset now. You're a bit more ready to then go out and ask people questions. Find the right people.
And I'm sorry, I had to put up there because someone else has shared my experience. But that's 100%. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to learning how to get people's. I think they need to be a StreamYard member before we can see who they are. So I'll find out how.
No, they don't. They just need to click a link. There's a link that StreamYard gives you But yeah, we'll work that out next time.
Beautiful, thank
I'd
you.
love to see their faces and that on there as well, because the questions they're asked, they're valid, they want answers, and we want. Yep. I'm just after that relationship.
I'd like to use their name. It would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Just
maybe if they put their name at the end of their question, that might be helpful. So that we know who we're talking to, would be lovely. I'd like to do that.
Yeah. Because there's quite a few questions I haven't actually popped up because I didn't know who they were from, and I just think that would be unfair. Some of them they're great questions. I just would like names on the end of it. So, just on that though, Alan, with the fear-based stuff, like I used to come from fear. I used to react from fear. I had immediate reactions, and that go back 10 years. Right now, I'd be very fearful. I'd be reacting to everything that's getting put at me. All the media, I'd be watching it. I'd be like, what do? I'd probably be buying lots of toilet paper. As it is, I did buy extra toilet paper to give away, not to keep, because I gave it to my neighbours. I gave it to my mum, people like that who actually need it. But I had to work on myself. And right now, there's no better time than right now to actually work on yourself. You've got time. If you've got the kids around you, learn with them. To role model to your kids, to teach them how to do it, to take them with you, to deal with things. Talk about finances. Talk about finances in front of them. Do a budget with them. All these opportunities are here right now that we wouldn't normally have. We normally wait till our kids go to bed before we actually present anything to our partners. Sit down at the dinner table. Let's get it out in the open. Let's talk about it. Because I think that now is where the gold will be.
Yeah, can I add to that as well that the fear, it's not I still have fears. The whole thing is we always have fears. It's part of it's what keeps us safe. We were going to have fears. But how much do we allow that fear to control us? And the more that we practice with this and we step into it, we start to address it, we look and go, okay, what really is going on here? We start to look at our fear differently. Yes, we'll have that initial spike where you'll feel it go through our body, the adrenaline rush and everything else. But the adrenaline rush and that real trepidation doesn't last as long. And the more we practice it, the less it gets. But, I know that, Scott, when you went and had the chat with your dad, there was a bit of fear there, but the desire to actually step into that role and have that conversation was greater. So the thing is looking at whatever we've got fearful about, what's on the other side? What is it that we're missing while we're in fear? How great is that? If we can build that image up to being so powerful, then the fear doesn't look as great. As they say, it's hard to remember that your initial target was to drain the swamp when you got alligators biting at your bum. But if you're focused on draining the swamp because that's your biggest desire, the alligators are just tadpoles. You don't notice them. So we give the fear power to make it bigger, or do we look at the alternative? What is it we really want? Where do we want to be in this life? And we've got plenty of time to do that, this isolation, that when we focus on that, the fear doesn't have the power it had before. It's still going to be there, but it doesn't have the power it had before because we're more in control of it. We're choosing our destiny as a letting our fear control our destiny.
I think it's a bit like a child who has the boogeyman under his bed or in the wardrobe or whatever. It's that sort of parallel, I guess, where they're fearful of something that they can't see. And I think maybe that's what's driving people, is that it's a fear that's it's this pandemic is something that they can't actually see. It's not affected them personally, but they know that it's there because, they've been told that it's there. But I think it's a bit like the child with the monster.
Yeah.
But,
sorry, I laughed then. I just saw the comment on the screen there.
Yeah, it was funny. I thought too. Yes.
Yeah. I know. Yes, Russell. Thanks, mate.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So, what do you think, others, about the monsters and the fear? Do you think it correlates together, or?
In some ways, it does, because a child just is lost. It's a belief that they think is there that we know it's not there. And most people who look at the fears that we have will say, "Oh, I can't see that." But the fear is real because it's ours. The same as with that child, it's theirs as well. So for the rest of us who, if you're a parent with that child, you find a compassionate way to guide them through. You don't tell them, "Oh, there's nothing there, go back to bed," because that just stresses them more. It also feels that they've now been abandoned by the parent. And so now the monster's under the bed and the parent doesn't care about them. So it's the same thing here. If somebody is showing fear, just show compassion towards them and say, right, I understand that you've got some fear. Tell me about it. Describe where where do you think it's come from? Let's talk about ways in which we can find a solution. What other things could you do? If you weren't doing that, what would you be doing over here? And
that's very different from offering a solution or saying, as you said, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's okay. This will sort itself out. I mean, I do say this too shall pass, but it doesn't come from a glib kind of, oh, you don't need to be afraid of everything. Because and this is what's really important is when we're talking about compassion, it's also about listening. It's not about offering a solution. It's just about sitting with a person and saying, I hear that. I see that you're in pain. I see that you're afraid. I'm here with you. And that's all that matters. We don't need to work things out for people and say, I've got the perfect solution for you, or you really shouldn't worry at all. That's all dismissing it. It's about acknowledging the other person. And I think hopefully that's something we're going to learn in the next few months. It's being listening to each other.
It's something I've had to learn recently. Mum, as you know, Mum's got dementia, and it's something that, I've had to learn all that patience and tell her not to be afraid of things. And, we had a mindful meditation today. It didn't work, but, I tried it. But, I'll keep trying. And but it's things like that. So it's feeling for the other person, trying to see, that they're uncomfortable and they need some help and some guidance. And I think, the people that are living in fear, you're right, Angela, they do need some help. They do need to be guided. They don't need to be chastised. I know I was a bit harsh about, I still think they're selfish, but, they're obviously doing it, as everyone has said. They're fearful of the outcome of this virus, whether they'll get it, or they don't know what's going to happen with the world, or, the area what they're living in. It's understandable, and but I guess patience is a virtue, so they say.
When fear is that great, it all becomes about it becomes survival, and that survival means people will be selfish and everything else. So it's having that understanding. But it's like having that child. You don't just tell them that everything's okay, because they won't believe you, because you've just told them everything they're worried about. They have no right to worry about that. But if you said to them, right, well, let's go and have a look, show me, let's go and sort this out. Now you're going with them. So you're taking that level of compassion. And as you were saying, Angela, before, it comes down to listening and everything else. And I always say to people, and I know that this common thing was you got one mouth and you got two ears. Well, I go, no, you got one mouth, two ears and two eyes. Use them in that proportion. So use the mouth even less when you're working with somebody. The other person will do all the talking. I'll ask a couple of questions and they will work through things. They turn around and say, I've had a great conversation with you. And I've said next to nothing. They're the ones that have done all the talking. And in doing that, they find their solutions, because then they own it. But if you tell them nothing to worry about, you've told them that they had no right to do that there was something wrong with them.
You've dismissed them. You've dismissed their concerns.
So show compassion.
I have an expression that I use which I think, people sometimes think it's funny, but if you look at the language, it's everywhere. So, and as you were saying, Alan, don't use that for affirmation, use questions. So I generally say, am I spreading sunshine or am I spreading fog? Fog, I have yet to meet a single person who loves fog. Fog creates stress, anxiety, fear, and all of that. So am I creating that by fear-mongering, by gossiping, by buying into the negativity, or am I spreading sunshine? And sunshine does not mean that I have to be happy, clappy, everything's wonderful all the time. I can be sad, I can be upset, but I'm not going to let it run me. I'm not going to let it rule me. My goal is to lift myself up and to spread sunshine around me and light myself up. And you know what? Light always will always win.
Yeah. It's funny you saying that at the minute, because one of the big things for me is families at home, if we're feeling the fear, it lives in us, the fear. So as Alan teaches, 7% of your communication is the words. The rest is your body language, the tone of voice and everything else. So if you're carrying that through to your home, your kids are feeling that. That's why it's so important in this time. If we have a lockdown, make sure you've got good fuel going into you, because if it's going in, it's coming out. So make sure that when you're around your kids, you're giving them your best. So
I want to bring some positivity to this conversation, if I may.
Please.
Is it okay? Have you noticed from the satellite pictures that we get that the world is actually cleaning up? Because everyone's locked up. Now, isn't that something positive?
Very much so.
The trees will love it. The earth will love it. The ozone layer will love it. Now, that is got to be something really positive. That, the skies are clearer. Everything's better. China can be seen now from the air, from the satellites. It's sort of fogged over. So that's got to be something really positive from this pandemic. That's got to be it. The one positive that I can think of at the moment.
I think it's really highlighted the fact that where we've been talking about saving the planet, while we've been in isolation, the planet's been looking after itself. So it's not that we have to save the planet. We have to change the way we're doing things so that the planet will let us continue to be on its surface.
That's correct.
If we then took that approach instead of saving the planet, the end result we would be doing is saving the planet for us, and therefore we do the right thing, because it's about everyone comes back to being them. Now, you can be altruistic, but when you're under pressure, it always comes back to ourselves. So
yes, someone has said that it's Mother Nature's way of telling us that all these talk fests about saving the planet aren't doing any good, and they're sick of hearing about it. So they've decided to spread this pandemic around the place and make us do something. It was just a theory that's been put out there.
Well, if we had a virus on our skin, wouldn't we put some lotion on it to get rid of it?
Exactly.
The virus is that the lotion that's getting rid of the human virus.
Yeah.
So, which is a virus. So it's a different way of thinking of it. But the whole thing is, I noticed the comment there before, which was about being interested instead of being interesting. And I think that, from Hugh is absolutely brilliant, because by being interested, we're putting our focus on other people. We're not on ourselves. But being interesting, how many people have you seen on LinkedIn, Facebook, that are all coming out of the woodwork and jumping in and putting up all these things, like putting themselves out as experts, and it's all about them. Whereas I'm going, no, I want to know about the other person. I want to have those conversations. I want to hear what they've got to say. I want to learn from them as well. And in that process, it's like the Campfire Project. We have chats, and I walk away with more knowledge than when I started, because I find everybody who comes on is interesting. They've all got stories to tell, and I learn from everybody. Even my students, when I'm teaching them, if I'm not learning from them, then I'm not doing my job properly. So I might be a teacher part-time, but I'm a full-time student. And so
aren't we all? Aren't we all? You learn from, I've learned so much from my children, even from when they were small, just different things in their different perspective on life and living and so forth, and and I'm still learning from them. They've got different ideas about stuff, and I think it stops me from being so concrete about my own thinking. So sometimes I've got to think outside the box, basically.
You sometimes get comments from your grandkids, and your ego goes right out the drain real fast. It's like, oh, okay, I got that.
The best gift in life, I think, you can give yourself is to actually take the time to get to know somebody. I think there's no better gift in life, because when you get to know somebody's story, you get to have a connection. And for me, that's what we're about, connecting with each other. You ever notice when you go to a funeral and you're just intrigued by all the information that you've heard about this wonderful person? Wouldn't it be nice to hear it from them? I'm conscious of time tonight. This has been our first live, and I can't thank everybody enough for being a part of it. But one of the things that I'm going to stick with and we're going to stay with is I'm going to ask everybody for one piece of advice. You can give everybody one piece of advice right now in 30 seconds, and no pressure, everybody. But I'm going to ask, and I'm going to start with Ellen, give the girls a bit of time. So if you have one question, one bit of advice for everybody, 60 seconds, fire away.
Not even that long. As they say, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the world is and always will be eternal. And in that, you then have a valued life. When you leave the planet, you want to leave it in a better place than you found it. And you do want people to miss you when you go, because that way you've done the right thing. You've looked after other people.
Beautiful. Thank you. Rose?
I think my advice would be to live life to the best of your ability, love fully to the best of your ability, and be kind to others to the best of your ability. Without those three things in life, I don't think you have one.
Beautiful. Thank you. Angela?
Well, mine is somewhat more practical. Eat well, because 80% of our immune system is in the gut, and whatever we put into our body gets turned into nutrients, and that strengthens the immune system. So it's really tempting now to go into comfort foods and and really just get into food that doesn't really support us, because what better way to just go, I'm going to wallow in this and have my chips and whatever I can get. Eat some really good food, support your health and your immune system, because it's really, whatever you put into your body becomes your body. It's the basic building blocks for the next cells. And that matters more than ever. And we produce most of our serotonin, our contentment hormone and neurotransmitter in the gut. So when the gut is out, we don't produce serotonin. Or it's impaired. So fear starts really with the food that you take into your body. So that's mine. And that was probably more than 60 seconds.
No, that's fine, though. Look, it's great advice, and I'll take it. And for me, smile more. Raise your cheeks. Because you can't be angry when you're smiling. So if you've got a situation, you're not sure how to handle it, smile, walk into it, and listen. So on that, thank you, everybody, for my first panel.
Hand touches.
Sorry, elbows.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much, everybody. I got through my first one without too much hassle, but I've had beautiful people.
Well done.
So
well done. Congratulations.
Glad that you stepped up, and I'm glad that Angela's also stepped up as well doing talks. Thank you guys for turning the Campfire Project into a real community. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for making it possible. Without you, we wouldn't be here.
I love it here. It's great.
But it only happens when we get people involved. So the more we have in, the better it gets. So if you're watching this today, invite people in, get them into the project, because it only gets stronger as we get bigger. So thanks very much for your time. Thanks, Ellen. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Angela. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.